This is part 12 of 13 of our response to Stephen Hargrave's message in the COGR's Revelation series.
I want to tell you something. I wouldn't care if Jesus came back and Tamika and all them had their earrings in their ear when he came. I'm not suggesting that we're changing anything. I am saying there's a big world and there's a big God, and the gospel has been cast into the sea and has gathered together of every. And if it's gathered together of every kind, don't you be the kind that look at the kind and say that is not the kind. Fullness of the Gentiles. The Gentile truth has been dispersed throughout the Gentile world. I'm trying to close. It's not working. I like you, Brother Bovers. It's for the apostles to say what's good and bad. There y'all go. Y'all just trying to get the apostles to rule. No, we are not.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. That's pretty transparent.
What I thought was
get to say what's good and bad. Again, it's putting the control and the power into them, and you as a congregant, you have no say. You're really just invalidated as a congregant.
Absolutely.
what caught my attention as I was thinking about this is that Scripture tells us in a number of places that the mark of maturity in a Christian is being able to discern good from bad. It's something that we are taught to do in our Christian walk, and then we live it out in our lives. So if we're going to cede the ability to determine what's good or bad to the apostles, we are going to stunt our own personal growth so that we will never mature. It's the opposite of what is supposed to be happening in real life.
Super important point.
It is the opposite, but it's fitting for them again when they say you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus. Therefore, they don't encourage you to read through Scripture and grow as an individual. That's highly discouraged, and they don't want that, because the moment that starts happening, you're going to start questioning, and then, well, then you know where that leads.
Right.
And only one person, only one being declares what is good or bad, and that is God himself. So the apostles certainly are able to look at Scripture and discern what God believes good and bad is, but so isn't every person that functions within the congregation. That's not exclusive to the apostles. You don't need to be an apostle to be able to determine what is good or bad. And you made reference to this earlier in our discussion that talk about sandals. And that if they said sandals were sinful, then sandals were sinful. I mean, seriously. In what world?
Yeah. So they're referring to a scripture where they cast out the net, they gather in of every kind, and then the fishermen sort it out. And they see the apostles as those fishermen in that parable. It's interesting to hear him say something like, don't say of all those kinds, well, you're a different kind than me, and therefore you're not acceptable. Which is excellent advice that he doesn't take himself. He says, you're not allowed to say what's good and what's bad, but I am. Instead of realizing that he's on the cusp of a breakthrough of liberal thought, liberal in the Renaissance sense, that, as we said before, other people are having spiritual experiences. Other people do have valid existences and connections to divinity and things like that. And that it is bigoted of you to claim that they don't. That's a mistake that he should stop making, as well as the congregation.
Any thoughts on that, Kelly?
Well, I agree with you, but they're not going to, I don't see them changing, because they'd have to step down off their thrones.
Right.
And as we spoke about before, whatever their hunger is, or their thirst to be in this position of power and to be sitting on messianic thrones ruling, that's what they're after. And to make any other changes, they would have to step down, and they're not going to do that. I don't see that happening anyway.
No, that's the main thing. That's the first doctrine of their constitution, is that apostles are the best.
Yeah. And when you mention that scripture about sorting, they say that they're casting out the net right now. And that's what the apostles are doing, is they're sorting and deciding who is worthy and who isn't. They claim they're actually doing that right now.
Absolutely. They absolutely do.
Yeah.
And it would be frustrating to me as a congregant, let's take me personally if I was still there, because this isn't my culture. You know, Steve wants to be able to have Black culture and listen to hip hop music, and Ray listens to country music, and people that come in, the multitudes are coming, they're going to have tattoos, they're going to dress, they're going to wear shorts, they're going to, you know, we're going to lower the standard for all of them. But don't you do that. However,
Yeah, exactly.
why am I grandfathered into these draconian rules when actually it's okay for everyone to express themselves? Shifts are happening. I do expect the clothes to change eventually, just the same way the music has changed. I do expect them to continue to think that we're all going to believe there's a continuity to that it's not a hypocrisy, which it absolutely is. I'm glad they're evolving, but I wish they would be transparent about it, or at least, introspective enough, self-aware enough to realize that transformation is happening, and why it's happening, because they were wrong about spirituality for the last 40 years. And they're evolving. It's quite frustrating.
I'm not so sure. In one regard, I know Lee and I spoke about the fact that maybe they're changing their position on medical care, and that, of course, would be a positive change.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of music and other things that they're now allowing in, I'm not so sure I would see that as it's evolving, but to whose benefit? For instance, are you familiar with the Gospel Trumpet app? Did you ever have that app when you were?
Well, I have the app now.
You have the app now. Yeah. Have you tried to go on to? I think there's a section for videos, and you now have to pay for a premium app to access that.
Yeah, they talked about that. I think at camp meeting, they did a whole day picking this app. Yeah, no, I've never seen that.
So we're now evolving in the sense that we're going to open things up to you that we couldn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for you to get that, you have to pay us money.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll decide which things.
It would be my opinion that, evolving or not, until they become more like Jesus, until they stop abusing people, until they love people and care for people and do what's best for people, they really haven't gone anywhere. And it makes no difference how they evolve if they continue to treat people in the manner in which they treat them now.
This concludes our video. Thank you for joining us. The resource slides go by rather quickly for sake of time. You may wish to pause on them to read them. There is a link in the description box to the Google Classroom where you will find the resources for this video. Disappointment is a bitter pill to swallow, paying back the hope I borrowed from someone I never knew. And it's a forfeit, humans in the suits of heroes, undressed by whispered conspiracies, in quest for the truth. But if the truth is what you're looking for, you don't get to choose the answers anymore. So tell me, do you really still believe that the truth will set you